everyone, and welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're gonna make an amazing little scrappy project that is gonna be so quick, so easy, so much fun to make, and so useful and great for beginners. Today, we're gonna make the Gallivanter passport wallet from Sewgnar Sewing Patterns. I feel like when I say Gallivanter, I have to have an accent with that, right? Gallivanter. So this cutie little wallet here is amazing, okay? It is so much fun to make. So let's just walk through it real quick. First, you can see we have a front like this with a magnetic snap. When you open it up, you're gonna have the passport pocket on one side. You're gonna have 4 credit card slots on the other side, a slip pocket behind that, and another slip pocket. So 2 slip pockets behind the credit card slot pockets, and then a nice large main cash pocket. On the back on the outside, you have a small zip pocket to hold coins and small things like that. This is so cute. It is great for scraps. So if you're a beginner, you haven't worked with vinyl, you're not used to raw edge projects, this is going to be a great project for you. This is also going to be a great project if you're just now learning how to edge coat. So if you've been wanting to try edge coating, but you don't want to use it on a really big project, this is going to be perfect for that because this will look, it already looks incredibly professional. I did not edge coat anything and it looks very professional. However, you add that extra step of that finished paint on the edge, it's gonna look so good. So thank you so much to Sewgnar Sewing Patterns for allowing me to use this pattern on the channel. If you haven't checked out their site, please make sure you go and do that. I've already done the Triskel wallet and it was so much fun. It is such a great pattern. I specifically love that these patterns are designed. In my opinion, they seem to be designed for beginners. This is great for anybody who really wants to step their toes into vinyl, cork, things like that, but you're worried about the bulk and the seams. This is a great way to work with that material without having to work with that, without having to worry about breaking a needle, without having to worry about big, crazy seams. And will I be able to make it on my domestic machine? You can definitely make this on your domestic machine. It is perfect for that. If you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shoutouts, anything at all. If there's another pattern from Sewgnar you'd like to see on the channel, please leave a comment down below letting me know. I love all the patterns. They're so well written. They come out so beautifully, so perfect. They look so professional. It's, again, one of those things. I know it's small, but to me, it's like, I made that. Oh my gosh. How do I know how to do this? Because the pattern was great. That's how. All right, guys, let's get started. So for this little wallet, you do not need this much stuff. You actually need a very small amount of material. About a fat quarter of leather, vinyl, cork, faux leather, anything that can be kept raw edge and has a bit of structure to it. So for example, sometimes we can use something like this right here. This is like a ripstop. It can be left raw edge, but it really has very light structure to it. You want something that is sturdy because this is going to be the entirety of the wallet. I'm using scraps from 3 of these. So obviously these are not scraps, but I'm using small cuts from 3 different vinyls because I really like to mix up all the pieces. I think it's gonna be a really cool look and it's gonna be a little bit easier to follow in the tutorial what piece is what. Then you're gonna need a 16-inch long piece of ribbon or landscaping fabric for the card slots. Now, I'm using ripstop for that. So I would suggest you have a fat quarter or half a yard of some sort of material if you're using like a water resistant canvas, ripstop, something like that, to use for the card slots, but you really don't need a whole lot. So really not a lot of hardware today. I am gonna use a zipper. The zipper is completely optional, but for me with a wallet, I love to have a zipper for a coin pouch. I have my bag tag as always. I have a magnetic snap here. You will need a magnetic snap. I guess you could use a fashion snap for this as well if you'd want. I'm going to use a magnetic snap that's from Cam Snaps, and so it has rivet backs, so it's very smooth, nothing pokey or anything like that, which I think is going to work really well for this wallet. And then I have a couple pieces of scrap of Decoville Light. You always want a little bit of scraps of some sort of a stabilizer when you're installing any sort of hardware, like a magnetic snap or a fashion snap, anything like that. So here's most of the other stuff. Since I'm going to be using that magnetic snap that requires a rivet on the other side, I have my rivet press with the associated die to go with it. Then I have my hole punch as always. And then I have a cutting knife. I cannot remember the name of this for the life of me, but we have some very detailed cuts we need to make. So this is going to make that a lot easier rather than just using scissors. If you don't have a tool like this and you're a bag maker, I highly suggest you get one because it is very useful. For my top thread, I'm going to be using a Tex 45 weight thread. This is from Size Swag and it's color Calypso Blue. In the bobbin, I just have a nice lightweight gray Gutermann thread. I always use that in my bobbin. My needle of choice as usual is a Microtex 8012. A healthy supply of plastic clips are going to be very necessary today. Something else that is also very necessary is either glue or double-sided tape. We're going to be using a lot of double-sided tape. I do prefer this over the glue. And then I have a silver ink pen and an air erasing marker for helping to mark things. We're going to be marking a lot of stuff, so they are useful in different scenarios. I have a seam ripper and stiletto, and then a stiletto that I keep at my sewing machine, and as always, a 1" by 6" ruler. Okay, so I'm going to keep the finished passport wallet out so I can kind of point to what goes where. So first, we have the exterior and the lining cuts, and one of these is going to hold the zipper box. So you can see the exterior is going to be this piece right here. So this is really what you see in the end when it's all closed, right? So if you have a directional print, like this is kind of a directional print, I would prefer the top to be on the top here on this long edge. However you do it, however you like. But that's what we're going to use for the exterior. And then the lining piece is actually just the back of that exterior. So this large piece over here inside the card slot, that's the lining piece. So you're going to have these two cuts. Okay, next up is the cash slot pocket. Now this is going to be another big piece. This is what you see of it right here. See the center here? It's covered by pockets, and then the back of it is going to be left raw on the inside of the card slot area. So it's this big piece here, but you see very little of it. So think of that if you have a special vinyl you're using. And then the other pieces are going to be for the snap tab, and that's going to hold this little piece of our magnetic snap here. I cut one out using the pattern piece, and then I just cut another piece out that's just bigger. Because I find it a lot easier to sew this down and then clean it up versus trying to cut two of them perfectly identical and sewing them down perfect. I do nothing perfect, so I find that this is just an easier method for me when it comes to making tabs like this. So these two cuts here are the card slot front and the card slot back. This is the card slot right here. It's actually going to be turned to the side. So if you have a directional print, again, think about that. So this panel right here that has the slots for the cards is the card slot front. And then on the back, I don't know if you guys can see, but the back of this is not just the back of the material. It is kind of like a lining, and that's going to be this card slot back. So next we have the side pocket. Now the side pocket is what you're going to see here behind the card slot pockets. So we have the card slots open up, and then we have the side pocket here that connects to that main inner piece. The side pocket just has a side like this, and you will see the back of the material on the inside of that pocket. And then the passport pocket is over on the right. And again, you just have the back of the material inside that pocket. And I believe that this is really just to hold the flap of the passport in place. And finally, we have the card slot lining. This can be ribbon, this can be water-resistant canvas. For me, it's this beautiful ripstop. And this is gonna go inside the card slots. You see, I used the same one on this one over here. You need something in there so that when you put a card in it, it doesn't just fall all the way to the bottom, right? This is how it separates it into separate pockets. So this is required. And don't forget, if you didn't print this off or you didn't cut it out, make sure you get your accordion fold template cut out. You will be using that when we're installing these pockets. So now let's start by installing our zipper pocket. This is optional, but I do love it, and it's very easy. So the zipper pocket is going to go on the exterior piece of material. This is what you see in the end, so think about that. And remember, it goes like this. So when it closes like this. So let me get you a visual. So in the end, if I have this facing upright, my zipper pocket's going to be over here on the left side. So flipping this over, so I'm looking at the wrong side, I'm going to cover the wrong side with my template, and my template zipper pocket is going to be over here on the right. See? So that when it's right side, it'll end up over here on the left. That makes sense? I'm hoping that having a pre-made one helps you visualize this. So I poked holes in the four corners of this zipper pocket rectangle. You could just measure how far down it is, how far in it is, what the size of it is. That's totally an option as well. Whatever is easiest for you. If poking the holes is easiest, do that. If cutting this out and then tracing it is easiest, then do that. But I'm just going to use my marking tool to mark inside those four holes. And so now that I have those four dots transferred over, I can use my ruler and I can connect them all to create that little window. And then once you have that window created with your pen, now you need to cut it out. Now if you want to use a pair of scissors for this, you definitely can. However, you're going to get a cleaner cut if you use this little cutting tool here, which I still cannot remember the name of. It's going to drive me nuts. It's an X-Acto knife. That's what it is. An X-Acto knife. Even though this is Fiskars. I don't know. You know what it is. Just be very careful and go very slow. And make sure you're doing this over a cutting mat, not just on some sort of work surface. And just go from one corner to the next. I find when I use scissors, I have a tendency to overcut the corners, which is why I like to use this instead. So once you have that cut out, if you want to edge coat, you can edge coat inside of this. I'm gonna try to remind you on places and when to edge coat things, because since there are so many layers, you can't really do it all in the end. So if you did want to edge coat the inside of this, you definitely can. Now's the time to do that. Let it dry. I'm not going to be edge coating it today. However, one thing you can do, especially if you have a vinyl that has like fuzzies on it, you can kind of separate this and very carefully and quickly run your lighter over those raw edges, and it will just melt down and burn off the little fuzzies, and you'll have a much cleaner edge. And this was something I would do before edge coating anyways, but if you're not edge coating, you could do this just on its own, and it leaves a nice clean, non-fuzzy opening. Now we're gonna grab our zipper, and I forgot to mention this is a number 3 zipper. This is not a number 5 zipper. If you're using a number 5 zipper, you will need to make this box a little bit taller. The pattern does tell you how tall, but I am using a number 3 zipper for this. So I'm just adding my zipper pull to my zipper tape like that. And then I'm gonna grab my double-sided tape, and on the wrong side of my main panel, I'm gonna run some double-sided tape right along the edges of that opening. And this will be to hold the zipper in place. And I'm gonna put the tape on all 4 edges. You'll notice I am using a lot of tape today. Very tape happy pattern. Okay, once you have the tape applied, you can take the paper off the back of it. And then with the zipper right side up and the zipper closing towards the left. So when it closes, it goes towards the left. When it opens, it goes towards the right, just like that. We're going to take that little window and we're gonna flip it over so the window's on the top edge of our material. And we're going to just lay this right over that zipper, making sure that the teeth run right along the center. Always get my zipper pull on the tape. Pull the zipper pull through the window and tape down your opening. Okay, so now just take your time here. My zipper is obviously a lot longer than it needs to be, and that's perfectly fine. And just make sure it's all centered. You can always pull up your material, move it around. So once you're happy with how it looks, we're gonna take it to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch around the outer edge of this little opening at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I would suggest back stitching at the beginning and the end, and I would suggest using a zipper foot here. All right, so once I have this sewn on, I like to leave all of the threads nice and long. So the 2 threads from the beginning and the end on the top and the bottom. And I leave them nice and long so that I can pull on the bobbin threads here behind the zipper. And I'm gonna pull those blue top threads to the back side. And this is where a stiletto is really handy because you can just pull those threads back nice and gently. And then using those long threads, you can tie them off. I like to tie it into like 3 tight knots. This is just extra security for the thread because the thread we're using is very strong. So we don't really have to worry about it breaking or ripping, but we do have to worry about it possibly unraveling. So by tying it off like that, now you don't have to worry about it at all. Now I want to trim down the zipper tape. You want to leave about a 1/4 inch overhang on each side from where you started and stopped stitching. So just like that. It should not extend into the seam allowance on the sides. It should just extend, like I said, about a 1/4 of an inch past where the stitching is. And then always with zipper tape, if you have a raw edge, you gotta melt the ends down so they don't unravel. So very carefully, just the zipper ends. Okay, last thing we want to do is mark placement for the magnetic snap and the snap tab. So I'm just lining this up. Remember, the pocket is where the pocket is on this, and I'm looking at the wrong side of my material. I'm going to use a non-erasing pen for this, and I'm just going to mark the center of where that magnetic snap is going to go, just like that. And then on the top here, I'm going to mark the snap tab placement, and this is what we'll use later. So just right along the edge here. And I'm just making 2 small marks, and I can use this later. Here we go. So before we are done with this, I think I'm actually going to add my bag tag here. So you can see on this first version here, this is how it looks on the outside. And then on the inside, I inserted my bag tag right here underneath the card slots, which looks really good. I could also go right here on the passport, but then you would see the stitching on the back of it. This is a good spot right here, I feel like, because you won't see the stitching in the end. So I think I'm going to put my bag tag just below the zipper on the exterior before I have it combined with other pieces. So I have my bag tag, and I'm gonna put a piece of double-sided tape on the back of it. And I'm placing it about a 1/4 inch below the opening of that zipper window. And now I'm just gonna go to the sewing machine and top stitch over all 4 edges of my bag tag at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, now that I have my bag tag on, I'm gonna set this to the side. So now we're gonna work on the snap tab, and since I am using a snap tab with a rivet back, and that can be seen in the end, I am not gonna mark placement for it. However, I am gonna add a little bit of stabilizer. So here's my cut of stabilizer, and I just wanna add it where I know the snap tab is gonna be. So I'm just gonna put it right over here. You can adhere it if you like with your iron, or you can tape it, whatever is easiest. So now that I have my stabilizer adhered, I'm gonna add some double-sided tape to the back of this snap tab cutout piece. Just a couple of pieces running along the length of it. And then I'm gonna take the paper off that tape, and I'm gonna lay this wrong sides together with my other piece that's oversized, just like that. So this is what it looks like. And now I'm gonna take it to the sewing machine, and I'm gonna top stitch along all the edges of this cutout snap tab at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end. I do suggest you start on the flat piece because that's not gonna be seen in the end. All right, now that it's top stitched, I'm going to trim down the larger piece so it's the same size as the snap tab cut. And to do this, all I'm doing is just running my scissors right along the edge of that cut that I already have. And this is one of those things, I find this is a lot easier than cutting them both out the same size and then trying to make it work, because my material always moves around on itself. Now go around and make sure you're happy with how it looks. I'm gonna grab a lighter to very quickly clean up any of the little fuzzy sides, but you need to do it quickly because you don't want the lighter to char any of the material. Sometimes it can leave black marks on it. If you did have that, if you did have like some black soot left from doing this, I found that using rubbing alcohol takes it off. So you gotta be quick. Go around, there we go. Now, if you were gonna be edge coating this, now's the time to do that. You'd wanna do the sides and the little detailed bottom. The top here will be in the seam, so you don't have to do that. But if you're edge coating, now's the time to add all your layers of edge coating. So now I'm gonna install the mail snap on this. So I'm going to take my cut here, and I'm gonna lay my template over it, and I'm gonna mark the center of the placement for the magnetic snap. And then I'm gonna grab my hole punch, because this is what I need for my specific magnetic snap. And I'm gonna punch a hole out where that mark is. So now I'm gonna grab the bottom die for my magnetic snap, and this looks like the female portion. And I'm just gonna put it in there, and we use that to install the male part of the snap. And so the male part of the snap, the magnetic part, is gonna go on the wrong side of my flap, and then the rivet is gonna go on the right side, just like that. Isn't that cute? Then all I have to do is insert this into my rivet press and press in place. There we go, so easy. And I find that it's just really easy to install this after top stitching rather than before. Okay, so now let's grab the exterior piece, and we're gonna install the female snap on the exterior. So flip this over so you're looking at your dot. Grab your hole punch and a small piece of stabilizer, and I'm gonna punch out a hole where my dot is on my exterior material. And I'm also gonna punch out a hole on my stabilizer. Now, if you're using the magnetic snaps that have the prongs, you're gonna do the same thing, just instead of punching a hole out, you're gonna rip the slits. And then I'm gonna grab the female part of the magnetic snap, and the magnet snap part goes on the exterior. Flip this over so you're looking at the back. Insert your stabilizer over the back of that prong or whatever you're using. And then I'm gonna put the rivet on top of that. So now I'm gonna grab my rivet press, and all I have to do is swap out the bottom dies. So easy. And then I'm going to insert this in and press it in place. And there we go, the snap is done. Honestly, whether you're using the rivet ones or the prong ones, it's easy, no matter what. Magnetic snaps are just easy. Okay, so I'm gonna bring back this for visualization because it can be a little tricky. So what we're gonna do is we want it to end up like this. The exterior right side up, the magnetic snap tab also right side up. Exterior right side up, just like that. So it means we have to glue these in place like this. So when the exterior is wrong side up, the magnet part is facing up on your tab. So I just measured in 1/4 of an inch from the right side here where the zipper is, between those two marks that are for my tab, and I made a line. That's just gonna help me line this up. Then I'm gonna grab some double-sided tape, and I'm gonna add a piece of double-sided tape between these two marks, right along that line. You could use glue here instead if you want. And then I'm gonna take the paper off the tape, and I'm gonna take my snap tab with the magnet snap part up. So this is the male part of the snap facing up, and I'm going to line it up with those marks, and I'm just going to lay it over that tape so it's stuck in place. So you see, this is the finished result here, and this is what we're working with here on the bottom. It looks the same, right? It's the top of the snap, right side of the exterior, just the same. So that's how it needs to look right now. Okay, so let's flip this over once again. And what I'm gonna do now is on the wrong side of my exterior that has the tab and everything, I'm going to once again lay my pattern piece over it, and I'm just kind of lining it up on the right side over here. This would have been easier to do if I would have done this before I installed my zipper, but it's okay. We have this big box, and I poked out the holes of all four corners of this coin purse box. And what I'm doing is I'm just transferring those marks to the back of my exterior piece here. Move the zipper in the middle, that might be easier. You don't have to do anything specific with this right now, so it doesn't have to be totally perfect, but we're gonna use this later. So I have all four of those marks made. Okay, and then using a ruler and a marking tool, I just marked that little box, so I know this is going to be a pocket in the end. That's what you're marking right now. This is gonna be an open pocket. This is going to be the inside of it, the back of this material. So we don't want to put any glue here and accidentally glue this to anything, because then we can never use that pocket, right? So now we're gonna attach the lining side to the exterior side. And in order to do that, we need to use glue or tape. I'm using tape. And I think for this part, I'm actually gonna use a little bit skinnier tape. I'm gonna use 1/8 of an inch wide tape. You can use either, but I wanna get right along this edge. And the sides of that box that we have here are about 1/4 of an inch in. And I wanna make sure my tape doesn't get into that box. So I'm just gonna add this tape along the edges. You can even put it over the very bottom of your tab. That's fine, because this all needs to stick together really well. So I'm starting by going along all four edges of my material first, and then I'll work on the center. Okay, so once I have all four corners done, I'm gonna go underneath my pocket here. Not right on the line, but just close to it. And then honestly, I think I'm just gonna do like an X or something. You could use a lot of tape here. This is what's going to be holding it all together until we sew it along the edges at the very end. It's totally up to you. The less sticky stuff you use here, the more it'll kind of pull apart just naturally. But I don't know if it would be a problem. Okay, so now I'm going to take the paper off of all these pieces of tape. So now lay the exterior piece with the snap tab wrong side up, just like this, and then grab your lining cut, and you're gonna lay it right side up. If you have a directional print, make sure you remember this is the top on the exterior, this is the top on my lining. And we're going to just line this up with all the corners and edges of the exterior and tape it or glue it in place. I like to lift it up, maneuver it. You will be able to clean this up if you don't have very straight cuts later, but just kind of finagle it. There we go. It should be nice and stuck together. So now we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and we're going to top stitch along the top edge. So if the snap tab is on the right, the top edge is on the top here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I am going to do it with the lining side facing up, because when I finish it in the end, all my top stitching is going to be done with the lining card portions facing up. Something to think about if you're going to be switching back and forth between your top stitching, how you're going to want to do this. So if you want to top stitch this with the exterior side facing up and you want to top stitch along that edge, you will have a little bit of trouble later matching your stitches. Just something to think about. So I do prefer to top stitch this with the lining side up at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I do back stitch at the beginning and the end, and I'm going to tie off the threads in the end. This is one of those projects where your bobbin thread is seen in the end, which is why I always like to use that light gray bobbin thread, because it's not very noticeable no matter what color I'm using. I mean, it's a light gray, almost whitish thread, and this is a dark material, and you still can't really notice it. So I just feel like it's a really good color. Okay, so now the pattern tells you where to mark this, but this is going to be the bottom of your zipper pocket. So if I flip this over, see I have my zipper over here, and we didn't put any tape in this spot right here, we're drawing a line right here, and we're just gonna top stitch right over that line, making sure you back stitch at the beginning and the end. All right, once we have all our top stitching done, take a look at that top edge that you top stitched along the long side, and if you need to trim anything down, go ahead and do that. My stuff shifted a little bit, so I do need to trim down just a tiny bit of the vinyl on the exterior side, which is fine. Just do your best to keep it nice and straight. Now I'm going to grab a lighter, and again, this is only on the side, the long edge that has the top stitching. And I'm just going to quickly run it along that edge to clean up any of the little fuzzy bits. Okay, you can set this main panel to the side for now. So now we're going to work on the card slot pocket. So on the back side of the card slot pocket, I measured and marked the lines per the pattern. And then I marked horizontal lines going along the sides so I can find the connections here. Now you don't have to use a hole punch for this, but I do like it. So where the horizontal and vertical lines connect, these 4 spots on the bottom and 4 spots on the top, I'm going to punch a hole right at that crisscross at each one. Now punching out these holes is optional, but I do like the look of it. And I feel like it's a little bit easier whenever I'm cutting the lines. Now you can use a rotary cutter to cut these lines. You could use scissors. I'm going to use the X-Acto knife once again because I do feel like it gives the neatest finish. But you do have to be careful. And I find that as I go down, I never quite get to the bottom hole. So you see if I open this, it's separated up at the top hole here, but at the bottom it's just barely hanging on. That's okay. I can clean that up with my scissors in a minute. I'm always afraid I'm gonna go past it, and it's not the end of the world if you go past that little dot, but I prefer not to. But if you feel like you can't make a straight line using an X-Acto knife, you can use your ruler and your rotary cutter. Just if you do that, if you use a ruler and rotary cutter, my suggestion is when you have the ruler here and then you use your rotary cutter, don't go all the way to the dots. Just go like 1/2 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch away from each of your connectors. Just go right in the center and then use your scissors to finish it off on the top and the bottom. Okay, so once I have this done, I'm just gonna use my scissors to get in where I missed. So this is totally optional, but once again, I'm gonna grab a lighter and I'm just gonna whoop, get all the fuzzy bits on both sides of these raw edges. You could edge coat these if you'd like. I wouldn't do a heavy edge coating. I would just do like just 1 coat of color and that's it. You don't even need to use a base or a top coat or anything. Just 1 coat of color on these edges would be fine. Okay, but running the lighter over it, it just tucks in all those little fuzzies so we don't have to worry about it looking messy. So now let's take our card slot pocket and lay it wrong side up. And then we're gonna grab some double-sided tape and we're gonna add a piece of double-sided tape underneath each of these 4 lines. So the width of my ripstop is not as wide as the opening, and that's okay. That's how I see most patterns do this. You can make it as wide as the opening if you'd like, but it doesn't have to be. And then I'm also gonna do a piece of tape right above the top cut edge. Okay, so don't take the paper off of all these just yet. You're gonna only take the paper off of the bottom one. So the very, very bottom. And then take your card slot pocket and lay it right side down. And you want it so that the long end of your card slot pocket goes over the top of the card slot piece. So it's where all these tapes are. It's gonna go off to the right, just like this. And it's gonna overhang over the bottom cut edge by about 1/4 of an inch. Just make sure it's centered and straight, just like that. So now we're gonna carefully flip this over and we're gonna take this to the sewing machine and we're gonna top stitch right below the bottom opening. So the bottom cut right below it, we're gonna top stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I do back stitch at the beginning and the end, and I do tie off the threads on the back side. All right, once you have that top stitch laid all so everything is wrong side up, and you're going to take your long piece for your card slot and you're gonna fold it back so it's right side up, and then just give it a good press underneath that opening where you just stitched it in place. Now you're gonna grab your little template here for the accordion fold template, and you're going to line up the long edge of it with the opening on the 3rd pocket. So the pocket just up from where we just sewed, just like this. And what you want to do is wrap the bottom of your material up and over the opposite long edge of that template. So this is just showing us how much to fold it, that's all. All right, once I have that where I want it, now I'm going to remove the paper from the tape underneath that third slit. And I'm going to fold my material back so it's wrong side up, and make sure again that it's centered between these holes and that it's straight, and just tape it down right there. So now we're going to flip this over and we're going to top stitch right underneath the third cutout at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end. All right, so now we're just going to repeat that for the other two, but I will walk you through it since it's pretty quick. So now we're going to take that lining piece for the card slot and fold it so it's right side up, and then just give it a nice firm finger press right where you just top stitched it. Grab your template, line it up with the second cutout now. Getting long edge with the second cutout. Fold up your little lining card slot piece just like that. And then you can remove the template and take off the paper from that second pocket opening and lay down your lining. Always making sure it's centered between your dots and it's straight, lining up like this. Flip this over, and now let's top stitch right underneath the second cutout at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end. All right, flip the lining back, finger press right where you top stitched. Grab your template, line it up with the very first or top, it's kind of hard since it's sideways, but it's the top pocket. Wrap your lining around it so it's nice and snug against the bottom of that template. Once you're good, remove the template, remove the paper that's underneath that first line, and tape this down, and then flip it right side up. And now, once again, we're going to top stitch right underneath that first slit at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end. And if your machine is starting to act up a little bit, it might be because there's a lot of sticky stuff. We have so much tape here that we're sewing over. You might want to grab like a little wipe with alcohol, rubbing alcohol on it or something, and just clean off your needle, and that will help with it acting up. So finally, I'm going to fold it down behind the bottom of the top pocket, and I'm going to remove the final piece of tape, which is above that pocket. And now I'm going to fold the end of my lining up so it's about 1/4 of an inch away from the top edge. We don't want this material to be in the seam in the end, so just make sure it doesn't go all the way up to the top of your material. It's just close to it. So now this is what it should look like on the front. How stinking cute is that? Isn't that pretty? And this is where I put my bag tag before. If you want to do that, you're more than welcome to. So now you have your card slot front that has all the card slots in it, and then your card slot back. And you're gonna lay these wrong sides together. Now, they are not the same size. So when you're looking at it from the front, the top and the right sides need to be matched up. If I look at it from the back, you see, so this is the back side, the lining side. You see how I have the overhang on the bottom in the right? We only want it with the slots part facing up, lining part facing down, so the wrong sides together. We're only concerned about the top and the right edges. So before we do this, let's add some tape. So you're gonna add tape to the lining piece since that is the smaller piece. So I'm gonna add tape along all 4 edges of this back lining piece for this pocket. So now remove the paper from all the tape. And this is what's cool. This might be a little confusing at the moment, but this is what is really cool about this pattern is the way that they avoid too much bulk by resizing some pieces. It's brilliant. You'll see it as we go through. It's really cool. Okay, so I have my back piece laying wrong side up just like this, and then I'm gonna take my front card piece and I'm gonna lay it right side up, and I'm gonna line up the top right corner. That's what I'm focused on. So the top edge is what matters to me right now. And remember, the lining piece does not go all the way to the other side of the front piece. And then I'm focused on the right side. And it also will not go all the way down. Here we go. So those are the 2 edges I'm most concerned with, and then you can just kind of push it down to get the other edges to stay. There we go. And then you can always untape it and retape it to get it just the way you want it. All right, so now we're gonna go to the sewing machine and we're gonna top stitch only along the top edge. So with the card slots opening just like this. They're facing the right? We're going to only top stitch along the top edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I am going to back stitch at the beginning and the end and tie off the threads on the back side. Okay, so now looking only at that top edge that you top stitched, if you need to shave it down to clean it up, you can go ahead and do that. I just had like a teeny tiny bit poking through. And then, just like I've been doing, I'm going to grab my lighter to clean up the fuzzy bits. And if you are edge coating, now is the time to edge coat that top edge where you just top stitched. Now you're going to grab your side pocket and lay it right side up, and then take your completed card slot pocket and lay it right side up, matching it up with the bottom right. So this is what we're focused on at the moment. The bottom right corner, okay? So the side pocket is taller than your card slot, but it is the same width as the top panel for your card slot. So I'm just going to focus on this bottom right corner here. And for this one, I'm going to use clips to hold this in place because we don't want to tape this stuff down. I'm also going to just look at the bottom edge, but I'm not sewing the bottom edge. I'm just lining this all up. And honestly, you can just line up both of the bottom two corners and then the sides just to get this lined up. This will just help later. Now we're going to go to the sewing machine, and on this right side over here, not all three sides, only the right side, we're going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance from the very top of the side pocket over the card slot pocket all the way down to the bottom at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, just like we've been doing, only on the right side here where you top stitched. If you need to trim anything down, go ahead and do that to clean it all up. This is especially important if you're edge coating. If you're not edge coating, this isn't that big of a deal. You can kind of leave it however you're happy with it. But when you're edge coating, all the layers need to be at the same location. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my lighter and I'm going to run it over that edge. And if you are edge coating, now is the time to edge coat the right side here where you just top stitched. Okay, you can set this side pocket to the side for just a moment and grab your passport pocket piece. And this is just for decorative purposes, but if you want to, on the left side of the passport pocket, top stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end and tie off the threads on the back. So on this top stitched edge, I am going to melt off the little fuzzy bits, and you guessed it, if you're edge coating, edge coat this top edge right here on the left. So now grab your cash slot pocket and your card slot and the passport pockets, and we are going to attach all three of these together. So let's start with the card slot pocket first. The card slot pocket, the top left corner of it is going to match up with the top left corner of your cash slot pocket, and everything is facing right side up. So just focus on that top right corner. This is why I like to keep the clips on the sides as well, because even though we're only going to sew the top right now, I'm going to line up the sides as well. So I'm going to clip my card slot pocket to the cash slot pocket. And this is one side where you have quite a few layers. So you really want to make sure you have them all lined up, because when you top stitch in the end, it's very possible to lose them. So really spend some time on that left side over here, lining up all those layers. Now you'll notice that the card slot pocket extends down further than the cash slot. It overhangs it on the bottom. It's supposed to. So now we're going to do the same thing with the passport pocket, except the passport pocket, we're focused on the top right corner. So match these up. They're both right sides up, and clip along the top and the right side. And the passport pocket also extends further down below the cash slot. Okay, now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch along the top edge only. I know I have the sides clipped, but that's just to hold it down. We're only top stitching along the top edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Make sure you back stitch at the beginning and the end. Also back stitch as you go over the top of the side pocket and the top of the passport pocket. That's just going to provide a little bit of extra reinforcement threads to those pockets that are going to be used. Now looking at that top edge that you just top stitched, clean up any bits that are skewed. I don't have much. And you know it, I'm going to burn off the fuzzies. And if you're edge coating, go ahead and edge coat that top edge you just top stitched. Okay, now it's time to put it all together. This is a lot easier than you think it's gonna be. So lay your main panel, and this is the one with the zipper and the little tab on the side. Don't pull on that too much, I forgot that's not sewn down. And lay it so it's lining side up, and then you're going to lay your inside piece with the card slots and the passport pockets right side up on top of the lining, okay? Just like this. Now, let's focus on one side at a time. Let's focus on the passport side first. You're gonna match up the bottom right corners. You'll notice that the center panel here, that cash slot pocket, it doesn't reach all the way to the bottom and it doesn't reach all the way to the top. It's not supposed to. So start on this bottom right corner, matching up that passport pocket with the bottom right corner of your main panel and clip together. Be careful with your snap tab because I keep moving mine around. And this is where it's going to get a little tricky because you have a lot of layers here. So be really careful about going and lining up all the layers. All of your layers need to be lined up on the edge in order for you to catch it because we have such a small seam allowance. Now we're going to go on the bottom edge, lining up the bottom edge of the passport pocket with the bottom edge of the main panel. Here we go. And you notice once I have this clipped in place, it's like the left side of my panel where my card slots are, they don't reach the main panel. They're not supposed to. So you're going to lift this up and we're going to focus on the bottom left corner now. So now just looking at the bottom left corner over here, I'm going to maneuver my clips to add the main panel into my little lineup over here of raw edges. And I have quite a few. So just take your time here. Make sure everything stays straight while you clip this in place. So I have the bottom edge done, and you see how I have like a little lip right here? That's how it's supposed to be. It just allows it all to fold better. You don't want it perfectly flat. So now I'm gonna go on the left side, which probably has the most layers, is this left side over here. So you're gonna really wanna focus on this side and make sure everything is lined up perfectly all the way up. All right, so now we're gonna take this to the sewing machine and we're gonna top stitch along the right side, the bottom, and the left side, all at an 1/8 inch seam allowance. It gets a little tricky. I'm top stitching this with the card slot, like the inside of the passport wallet facing up. So my bobbin thread will be on the back side, but that's okay because I have the bobbin thread on the top here as well, so it all matches. At the edges of our side pockets and our passport pockets, make sure you backstitch over those. Also make sure you backstitch over the very top of this inner piece and just go slow. And if you want to backstitch over the sides of your snap tab, you can do that as well. Just pay very close attention to make sure nothing shifts and you're catching everything. So I don't know if you can tell here, but it skipped over some stitches right by the magnetic snap because I forgot to mention you should use a zipper foot here, and obviously I didn't use it. So I am going to go over that and fix it. And I know this isn't what everybody wants, but sometimes it's just how it has to be. So I'm inserting my needle into a previous stitch. I'm going to back stitch, and I'm trying very hard to just go right over those previous stitches and then back stitch as well. Let's see if I can just show you this here. So now where that long thread is, I'm just going to snip it down. And then I'm going to trim down my starting and stopping threads on the front and the back. And so you see on the inside where I had to fix that, it's really not that noticeable. You just see a couple extra little stitches right there, but that's because I didn't line it up properly. But I'm also going to just very carefully run a lighter over those stitches to pick up the ends. And now you can't even tell that I made a mistake there. I mean, you would really, like, you can tell because you saw me make it. But if you didn't know there was a mistake here, you would never see that. Okay, so I hope that helps because I know, I mean, that happens to me all the time. And we always talk about this, like, oh, our stitches skipped. And the whole reason my stitches skipped is because of this magnetic snap here. My presser foot was too wide. It couldn't go down low enough next to it. It kind of raised up, like as I was sewing it, it was raised up too high because of it. And I should have mentioned, and I'll put verbiage later, but I should have mentioned you should use a zipper foot for this step because of that snap right there. But even though I messed it up, I was still able to clean it up just fine. So take a look around, make sure you caught all your edges. Look at how it all is. Now, I'm gonna grab my scissors and I'm just going to clean up the raw edges. You don't have to do this. If you're okay with a little bit of overhang here and there, then just leave it. Sometimes, you know, it's one of those like bangs moment. You start cutting and trimming and then you're like, oh, I didn't mean, I trimmed too much on one side. Now I gotta trim more. And it can become kind of a mess. So only do as much as you're comfortable doing. All right, and now once you're happy with that, I'm once again going to just run my lighter along the edge to clean up the fuzzy bits. And you know what I'm gonna say? If you are edge coating, now is the time to edge coat the entire outer edge of this rectangle. Your snap should already be edge coated, but now you're gonna do the rest of it. And that's the last of your edge coating, and that's the last of the wallet. Look how stinking cute this is. Oh my gosh, look at that vinyl, right? Those colors work so well together. I feel like I was so focused on technique this whole time, I didn't even notice how pretty the colors all are together. Oh my gosh. I hope you guys love making this, and yeah, if you make one, you're probably gonna make, if you make one, you're gonna make a lot. So you see the difference between the cork and the faux leather, the vinyl. The color. Cork is great. I love cork. It's a very natural, very beautiful, classic look. But you know me, I love color so much. So this is how different it can be just by your material. And look at all that contrast. You can see on this one over here, let me take out my passport. On this one over here with the cork, not a lot of contrast, very muted. This would be a very good idea for, I mean, this is a rainbow foil dot on it, but if you just used a regular cork, then that's a great gift idea. If you have like a work gift event or something like that and you're not quite sure who's gonna get it or what their style is, go with something neutral. A neutral cork, it's gonna look professional. They're gonna use it all the time. Again, it's a gift that they're gonna love and they're gonna use all the time, especially when they travel. But if you know who it's for and you know they love color, you can have so much fun. You know what you could do with this too, especially now that we're in football season? If you had somebody who had a sports team that they're super excited about, you could make this using their sports team colors. You could, you know, switch up the contrast like I did, use 2 or 3 different colors, and it's a sports wallet. I think that's really cool, you know, and it's also great for high schoolers, anything like that. I don't know. I love this so much. I want to make one for everybody. So I hope you love making the Gallivanter passport wallet with me today. If you make one using the OklaRoots YouTube channel tutorial, would you please tag me? My hashtag is OklaRootsTuts. I want to see your version. I want to see what type of material you're using. If you're edge coating, I want to see it. I don't think I'm going to edge coat. I don't think I'm going to edge coat these two. I think I'm going to leave these two as is, but I do think I'm going to make another one where I do edge coat along all the steps like I told you in the tutorial. Just to I really want to see what that looks like, because I think that would be great. And even that, you know what? I could actually still edge coat just the outside of this and then the outside of the tab, and it would still look amazing. I don't have to edge coat every single seam in here. Something to think about. I hope you're having a great day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.